In this book, he basically states there are three major struggles in life. And how we deal with those struggles is going to be determined by our life's strategy, which is formed when we're children. Do you know who Freud is? Do you know who Carl Jung is?
I dreamed about a horse.
I imagine the horse is yourself.
Yes.
And these are probably the two most famous psychoanalysts in all of history, right? But do you know Alfred Adler? Adler is very interesting, and I just started reading a few of his books, actually. And he distinguishes himself from the psychoanalytic tradition that Freud and Jung essentially pioneered with his science, which he refers to as individual psychology. Now, in a way, it's not that different than psychoanalysis in terms of its methodology, but in terms of the assumptions that it makes about the human condition, as well as how we navigate our life circumstances, are extremely different. And I actually think on a practical level, much more useful in terms of like understanding a theoretical conception of the mind. So, wanted to talk to you a little bit about that today, especially in Adler's book, Social Interest. This was actually his last book. It's a great summary of the end of all of his findings. In this book, he basically states there are three major struggles in life. And how we deal with those struggles is going to be determined by our life's strategy, which is formed when we're children. So when we're kids, we're met with a whole bunch of challenges, and our environment essentially conditions us to try to overcome things in a certain way. And a lot of that is really how our parents interact with us and how we interact with siblings and how we do with school and everything like that. So depending on how we react to the set of challenges presented to us in infancy and early childhood, we develop a style of life that helps guide us through life's big challenges. Now, those are how we relate to society in general, navigate friendships, and just being among other people, like one of many in a society. Secondly, how we choose and navigate our careers. And third, how we function romantically in specifically a sexual relationship. If you know anything about the psychoanalysts, they are big on trying to understand the human sexual function.
I think perhaps you should entertain the possibility that it represents the penis.
Yes.
Now, for Adler and individual psychology, it is a factor. It's something to consider. It's a part of the human condition, but it's not really the driving force the way the libido is with Freud, and even Jung tried to distance himself from that minimalized reduction of human activity to pure sexual appetite.
Yes. And I used it because I wanted to express the fact that the power manifestation of sexuality is not the only power manifestation.
For Adler, we come across these crises, usually in an order, and what happens is our style of life that's formed in childhood is tested up against life's struggles, society, career, and romance. Okay, those are the three struggles. And basically, what happens with someone who is essentially raised very successfully, right? If they just had an ideal upbringing, and we'll get into what that means for Adler in a second here. Say someone has an ideal upbringing, they're able to navigate the challenges that life sets in front of them by having cultivated a sense of social feeling. Now, what social feeling is for Adler is essentially a willingness to cooperate toward a communal good. So you work with others, you do your part, you contribute toward achieving something that doesn't just benefit yourself. Now, this may seem obvious. This may seem easy, but I guarantee that if you think about your life and how one of these three situations has caused you any kind of personal turmoil, you may find that your willingness to cooperate with others and to give without receiving might be part of what made that difficult for you. Honestly, in my personal experience, it definitely has, and it gave me a lot to think about in terms of some of the things I struggle with and how I can better navigate them. So, as any good clinical psychologist, psychoanalyst, individual psychologist, if you will, Adler breaks down people into a few different categories. So he thinks that there are children who are pampered in childhood. He thinks there are children who are neglected in childhood. And he thinks there are children who are born with physical deformities that and that condition makes social feeling a difficult achievement for them, essentially. Really, for all three of those sets of people, an adequate amount of social feeling to deal with life's great challenges and difficulties is present, and the way to overcome it is different for each of them. And really, the kind of struggle you have, as well as certain other clues like what you dream about, can be good clues about which one of those kinds of tendencies you have, right? Were you given too much and had everything made too easy for you as a child? Well, you're going, and this is Adler's contribution to the history of psychology right here. He says you may develop an inferiority or a superiority complex. Now, one precedes the other. Okay? So he says that because, look, we're all finite human biological creatures, right? Dealing with a world that is way more complex, difficult, and dangerous than we would like it, right? That's just the situation we're in. And because of that, the human condition is characterized by a kind of striving against things that are greater than ourselves. So because of that, we have a well-deserved sense of inferiority, okay? Now, that sense of inferiority can be overcome through personal adaptation, through changing our style of life to fit our new circumstances, whatever those may be. Whenever one of life's new challenges comes at us, do we adapt and change our style of life in order to cultivate enough social feeling to overcome it? He calls that the struggle for superiority. It's not like superiority over others. It's more like superiority over our former selves and over the particular struggle that we are trying to overcome at the moment. This is a good thing. However, he does say that particularly with pampered and neglected children, they can fall into a habit of avoiding the problems. Instead of facing the problems and adapting their style of life, they avoid the problem. And then they consider themselves superior to people who do have to deal with the problem, right? This is I think a great example of this. He didn't use this word because he was writing way before this came into the modern vocabulary here. But if you think of like a hikikomori, right? Now, they stay at home. They don't leave. They will often have a lot of their things kind of taken care of for them by somebody else. And, there's like an almost unconscious assumption that I don't have to go do what everybody else is doing. I can just do this. I'm not cut out for that. Depending on the reasoning, it turns into an inferiority or a superiority complex, right? So it's either like, I'm not good enough, I can't deal with all that, I'm going to avoid the challenges, I'm just going to like stay inside and hopefully somebody else can help me because I just can't, right? That's the inferiority side of it. The superiority complex manifests as something like, I'm too smart for that. I'm not going to go out there and play those games that everybody else is doing. I've already got the game beat. I got it all figured out. How come nobody else could figure this out? All you have to do is get some other people to do things for you. And that is a major part of those complexes for Adler, is that instead of trying to handle things yourself, instead of trying to grow as a person and to cultivate a willingness to cooperate with others, you over-rely on others to basically fix your inadequacies for you in a way that's ultimately unfair. So, yeah, it really made me think about some things here, I will be honest. I'm curious if you think this has much merit to it. If you think this, I'm going to continue investigating Adler myself, and I'm going to continue posting some videos about different nuances of his theory. But the crux of it really is the cultivation of social feeling as an indicator of our ability to adapt and overcome life's challenges. And those challenges are, there are three that he identifies. It's our relation to society, our choice of work, and our romantic relationships. Which one of those are you all struggling with? Let me know in the comments, and maybe I will tell you mine later.